Thank you very much for appearing at this first panel. It is my pleasure for the first WOMBA and the first panel to be here in charge of giving the word to some really extraordinary gentleman and lady next to me. When designing this conference together with the WOMEX team, we were talking about how to set up this whole thing, and I'm glad that the team accepted the idea that we start really somewhere from the roots, or from, I believe, beginnings that should be underlined and always talked about. And this is something that is really authentic in the Balkans music. Not having in mind that, or don't want to go too much into the roots and too much into the history, but we wanted to talk a little bit about how it began in the Balkans, and to say a few words about, well, from the perspective of my colleagues here, mostly on the Serbian and the Bosnian scene, how it started in the, let's say, 80s and later in the 90s, concerning the world music. We had a chance to hear today a really great presentation from Ben. Thank you very much for that. We learned about this term of world music, how it came up, and why, and how it happened. We are going to see if there are also some connections to the Balkan during this panel session. Thank you for mentioning my festival Ethnofest that I represent. I will talk about it probably a bit more on the training sessions tomorrow, because this whole thing happening now is about showcases on the Exit Festival, about this first WOMBA conference, and of course about the trainings provided for those who applied to some of the pillars within the MOST project, which is organized under the umbrella of the Creative Europe program. So, okay, please let me then introduce you the panelists for today. We have today with us Kim Burton. She says in the shortest she's a musician and researcher, but I will certainly give her a floor to make a more detailed presentation about this if she would like to do so. Then next to her is Dragi Šestić. He is a music producer, founder of Mostar Sevdah Reunion, and someone who really knows a lot about the beginning of the world music scene in Bosnia and former Yugoslavia. And also my friend and dear colleague Bojan Đorđević, who is in charge of two really beautiful festivals in Belgrade, Ring Ring, going on for 25 years, I believe now, and Todo Mundo Festival, which is kind of already not a new member, but a festival that has already put something on the table in the last, let's say, 10 years in our surrounding. Bojan, beside being an artistic director of these festivals, is also a journalist, a music producer, and we know him very well from the beginning of the 90s with his radio shows promoting world music, now already 30 years and more. So what I wanted to start with was, I will put this on the screen. This is the previous, I believe, slide that we put together some few sentences about what we are going to talk today. And I will use it as some kind of guideline to give a word to the panelists here. So we said that all the festival goers of Europe can recognize the sounding brass and the driving beats of the Balkans. and they have been thrilled by it and dancing to it for almost 3 decades. We know the stories, and Draghi will certainly have a word about and his opinion about what is going on at this level. But we never talk about is there music still untouched, or music unchanged or undiscovered? Is there a vocal and instrumental heritage that demands our attention? And if the revival of Sevdah and the emergence of Neo-Sevdah is a tale that can give us a deeper insight into the Balkan music hidden away in a remote, let's say, rural or suburban areas. So I would like to start with Bojan. Do you agree? We start with you. You make a short presentation, and I see that you have a beautiful book in front of you. It is the Almanach, produced 10 years ago. For the world music in Serbia, and it's titled The First 30 Years of World Music, and we will come back to the point why it is not 1987 and why it is 1982 in Balkans. So Bojan, please.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for the most people from the MOST project that invited all of us to contribute not only in this panel, but throughout this year with the mentoring sessions, with the festival exchange, also giving the opportunity for the bands to showcase and to improve their skills, and also websites and whatever MOST is supporting. This is very important. Also, everybody has to take care that the new call is ending September 11th. So you still have to check out the MOST website and do things. Then back to the Balkans, and then I can start with 82, but then maybe I should come back with something which is even more decades before, because the first Balkan band that gets international recognition, I would say, is Bulgarian Choirs, thanks to the Le Mystère de Bulgar, which was recording in the 50s by Marcus Celie, and then we who are born in the 60s were lucky enough to find out that by 4AD independent music label who licensed this from Celie disc, and then that was the first thing, because they were everywhere. You can find Bulgarian voices in the movies, in the advertisement, and of course, like it happens in the Balkans, then you have 5 or 6 bands with the same name and selling out elsewhere. So that would be one of the first world music successes. I think this is even before Goran Bregovic or brass bands or the other stuff. But back to Serbia, and then, or I would say former Yugoslavia, because when we speak about the Balkans within the mostly we think about the former Yugoslavia. And the most crazy things that at the same time with this festival is happening in Rudolstadt, which is one of the greatest and the oldest world music festivals in Germany. They are focused on the countries of former Yugoslavia, with 2 at least bands from each part of the long-lived country. That's showing that even the brass bands has been very popular, and that was for many years considered as the only Balkan music that people everywhere were interested in knowing anything about. There are more things, and this wave is coming back. This time, thanks without the war. I hope it will be like this, and then we will still manage to continue this development, and also showing how wide and how different music from the Balkans is from each country, and different styles. Like I said, Bulgarian voices were the first one, so there are many different traditional vocal styles, arrange or non-arrange, and there are the other reasons which I will leave to ethnomusicologists to explain. But then back to the 80s, it was not coming from the music who were involved in the folk music. It came from the other musicians, from the musicians from other genres, mostly jazz or alternative scene, because like Ben said, this term didn't exist before, but also the folk musicians, the folklore artists were not maybe that much interesting in this opportunity to play elsewhere, except in the exchanges of the folklore groups wherever it's doable, but it was more on to enthusiastic basis. Later this became at least some cultural exchange and also some kind of business model, which was also interesting how it has been developed. But music-wise, this folk music has been integrated into the other genres with the artists, at least when we speak about Serbia in '82, when this trilogy of Balkan Impressions, the group of Lala Kovačević, included the traditional vocal group and also some traditional instruments into his jazz stuff. Also Boris Kovač and Stevan Kovač-Tikmajer here in Novi Sad established group called Ritual Nova, which in some elements still exist in the Boris Kovač music, and also there was this first local urban vocal music group called Paganke. So that was how the '82 was the year when the world music, we can say, started, and how this great almanac, I will later leave it for you to check. It's also a great information pool, and thanks to Oliver Đorđević and also Maria Vitas, who made all this working in the 3-year period. So that's how it started. But of course, the whole world music scene was not coined like this. It was called ethno music, and as for many musicians in Serbia, they would prefer to be called ethno music, not world music. Even there were some books and debates about this, and some researches how many groups would like to have this kind of name. So it developed slowly, and then after all the wars we had in former Yugoslavia, it just jumped on very strongly. So that's another story. And then I will say, for the history of development of the Balkan music, I would say very important is the one guy called Nikos Valkanos from Greece, who in 1985 made Inter-Balkanic Festival in Saloniki. He was the first one who gathered, I would say, 35 groups and 50 people connected to the world music in Saloniki in this great festival. And then it was the first try to make a coordination and real push for the Balkan music people. Some of us are still working in the genre. Nikos also did some other amazing stuff, also promoting and doing conferences on the Balkan brass music, which thanks to them I happened to meet this great gentleman, Ben Mendelssohn, and from then also the world music scene has been open for me completely. So we all have our stories, musicians as well. Now the bands are touring. You will see some of the bands who hope we are going to see on the international market in the future. But also I have to say that it's good that most selection included some traditional groups, traditional music groups like Rođenice from Novi Sad and Belgrade, who have been, we have seen at the showcase in Budapest, and also to the new developments like Balkan Taksim or Škoda Elektroniki and other stuff. And very important to also focus, diaspora from the Balkans is very strong. We never have to forget how this is important for our culture and how they are presenting the culture from the Balkans and how they are connected with the local tradition. And that's, we have to give them, I think, more space to help them to connect with the Balkans itself. Then I will maybe give the word back to you, and we will discuss things later.
Thank you for this insight or short overview of what was happening on the Balkan until the 90s. Then we have the 90s coming up, and I suppose the first breakthroughs of the bands from the Balkans that made international careers. I would like to ask Dragi about his experiences from that period and the beginnings, to tell us more about Mostar Sevdah reunion, the starts, and his points on what was happening in the 90s.
When a few weeks ago Bojan called me and he said, would you like to come for this conference? And I was thinking, why me, you know, it's, yeah, but, you know, who else, you know, it says, you are like the pioneer of this world music, you know, you will be the best. And I was thinking, am I so old? So actually, yeah, I am old. So, first of all, also I would like to say that the presentation of Ben was really great, and maybe we should somehow publish this kind of world music pocket guide for the young people, you know, really, it's really useful. I was really enjoying, you know, listening to all these points and struggles, and you know, and so I was just, I would say, yeah, I always have to come to this bloody war that was happening like 30 years ago. And, you know, just in the 80s I grew up with the regular rock and roll music, just like all of us. And that, I would say, our folk music, or even of former Yugoslavia, that was something that we would just, you hear on the radio or you see on the TV. But it was, I would say, nothing interesting, you know, for us. You know, it was just, you know, some kind of music for the older generation. And then, yeah, the war happened, and I was working as a music editor at the Mostar War station, radio war station, and then somehow there were some kind of cultural evenings, and it was evening with the accordionist and one singer, Ilyas Delic. And that is the first time when I heard them, you know, and I was thinking, this man is singing Sevdah on a very special way. It was for me like I heard John Lee Hooker in totally, you know, another environment. And I still remember when I went to, and I said to my director of the radio, I said, hey, what do you think? It would be really nice to record this man, just in any case, you know, you never know, he can maybe be killed, like so it was really, it's totally crazy, you know, now if I'm talking about that, because what you're now seeing, what was happening what is happening now in Ukraine, now Harakov, that's actually, I would say, it's what's happening to me, you know, when I was in Mostar for 3 years in the war. And that also I discovered with his way of singing, suddenly I just realized the beauty of this music, Sevdah, Sevdalinka, this Bosnian traditional expression. And because I was working at the radio station, a lot of journalists, foreign journalists, would come to our station to get some kind of information regarding the war, regarding here what's happening. And then also they would hear these guys like playing accordion and singing Sevdah. And one Spanish journalist said to me, this is flamenco. And I was thinking, yeah, you're right, this is really like flamenco. And I'm also, I would say, I was lucky because my father had a great LP collection and with all kind of music, you know, from flamenco, Amalie Rodriguez, Fado, all the LPs, the French chansonas, you know, Russian gypsy music, the jazz, blues, everything, you know. And even with my generation, when I was younger, they thought, oh, this is a guy, yeah, he likes to listen like Ray Charles and Mahalia Jackson, you know, like everybody else was listening, I don't know, what was now a new wave in Yugoslavia with this, or Azra, Bijelo Dugme, whatever. I was always listening like weird music. So I used to actually listen to the world music those days, and I didn't understand, no words, nothing. But I could always actually understand the music, the sound. And that's what I was thinking. That's the most important thing, like especially for the world music. I mean, we don't know what the guys are singing there from in Africa or Asia or whatever. If we are singing in our language, they don't understand what we are singing. If you don't know now our language. So the only way to bridge that was through the music, through the arrangements, so that you could feel and hear at least the emotions of our music. And it was, I would say, a pretty difficult task. Anyway, somehow, I recorded, that was really limited edition, this was like the Pearls of Sevdah, Biseri Sevdaha, in the middle of war. And we made it at our war station in Mostar. We did just like tape, from one audio tape to other video audio tape, like 50 copies, and also 50 copies of just accordionists who was also singing and playing Sevdah. And the funny stuff later, when I just released the first album of Mostar Sevdah Reunion, that of 12 songs that I recorded on that old tape, 93, I think 7 of 8 were also recorded the first album of Mostar Sevdah Reunion. And somehow life, brought me to Holland, 94. Well, I had to work in the restaurants, life, I was going, just to survive. But I remember I was going, I went to the music store in Amsterdam, and I went to, to buy some CDs, just pop, rock, blues, a little bit jazz. It's only, okay, here's like world music. Let me see what they have there. And that was very small. What you said, browser cards, and world music, and suddenly it was like Balkan, or East Europe, Balkan. And it was funny. I found one CD, Kalesijski Zvuci, but with S. It was a mistake. Zvuci. And this is now funny. With the help, it was your album. And I was thinking, how is this possible? Kalesijski Zvuci, you can find at the shop, but no Sevdah, how is this possible, And then, like 98, I returned to Mostar, and the World Child Organization built the Music Center Pavarotti in Mostar, 97. So 98, I was just, I went there, just to see the building and all that. And I met some people from, international people from the staff from this Music Center Pavarotti. And there was this Eugene Skeef, he was a percussionist from London, great percussionist. He was there some kind of, he was giving therapy and for the children, it was mostly built so that the children get some kind of music therapy because of the war, And they were there almost for a year. So I just asked Eugene, so did you ever hear, did you get a chance to listen to our Sevdah music, from Bosnia? And he was, no, what is that? So I started a little bit to explain him. And I said, yeah, I have really great friends, Izo and Mujo, these, it will happen that they're a singer and accordionist later of Mostar Sevdah, I said, it would be nice, to hear. Oh, okay, great. But then, somehow the miracles start happening. That's really, it was nothing in my head. I'm talking to Eugene, and I see just the door of this music center Pavarotti is opening, and Ilyas Izo is entering. And I said, this is just amazing, that's Izo, that's the singer that I was talking, about him, telling you. So, well, come here, coffee, we start just a little bit talk. And then like half an hour later, Mustafa Šantić is entering also a Pavarotti center. And I'm like, this is just totally amazing story, And I asked, like, Mujo, what are you doing, He said, no, I just to see, maybe I can teach, kids or something, because, he's clarinet player and accordionist, finished conservatorium. Oh, come here. So we start talking. And the moment was... at evening, we make some kind of session for the staff of this international staff that they were working at the Music Center Pavarotti. And they said, okay, we recorded even that session. And they said, oh, maybe you should make some demo recordings. So fine, okay, I'm happy to help my friends, yeah, sure, go there. And then also came this drummer of Mostar Sevdah, there is no name at that time. So they went in the studio. I'm just doing nothing there, really on the side. And this accordionist, Mustafa, who is really an incredible accordionist, he just turned to me, okay, which song, Dragi? And I'm like, why are you asking me? I don't know, Moj Dilbere. Yeah, but how? So I just thought, okay, I don't know, try it with the 4 beats. You made the bump, and then you start with the 4-spiel, and they start, no, but this is not how it's going, the song, there is a song, you have to do this 4-spiel, then singing, and all of that. And I said, yeah, but if we are going to do what they were doing for ages, for the last 50 years, we are doing nothing, we are just copying them. So let's do something else, let's try, let's experiment. And that's how first these 3 tracks of demo were made. And even I just heard that came these 3 tracks to office of Peter Gabriel, and I know Brian Eno also got it because he was very much involved with the World Child of Mostar and Pavarotti Music Center. And like a few months later, he came to Bosnia, and we had meeting with him. And I mean, the idea was just for 2 hours. He came to Mostar. He was he was a member of the board of Pavarotti Center, and we were just talking about that. We thought he's going to take over, but he said, "No, you just guys doing fine, and let's do it." So we start just extra recordings for a real first demo. And I remember I went to the shop when I just start putting all the names, of the record labels, etc. And 1999, the first album was released, and that I still remember the song lines and F roots. They were just like everybody was writing, like the totally unknown music from the center of Europe. But after that was very difficult life and work, because I had to explain always when I was looking for the concerts. They were always asking me, "Do you have a trumpet?" So I just have to explain, no, but it's not now, the old Balkan music is not just a trumpet, we have different kind of forms, you just have to research more, it's something, and I started explaining, this is something like fado, but we have also faster songs, beats, it's like, and then flamenco, it's passion, and at the end, that, I think also, I created something that was later like, and I said, yeah, it is like blues. It's like Balkan blues, actually. And that is how they start using also Balkan blues in that term, like Sevdah Balkan blues. But it was, say it's more complex than blues, but so, but it was really the difficult. It is still a difficult time to explain. I'm also involved with other projects, like I released this album at Arkul, and that was like Sephardic music. And I just a few years ago also recorded and released the album of Croatian Klapa. It's a cappella. And just like trying, to bring these people to the festivals, but it's so difficult because there is some kind of stereotype, and it's in a head of the programmers or whatever. If you say Balkan music, everybody expects, just like what we call, like for joke, like umpa music with the trumpets and just let's go crazy and that's it. But we have very, say, rich area, and yeah, we should also start working on promoting all kind of music, because this is really, well, probably Kim has also to talk something very interesting music from Bosnia, but it is really difficult task for us to now to promote all these others music except brass bands that you are also guilty that are doing this.
Accepted. Case closed.
So now.
Well, just in one more short sentence, please. You mentioned klapas and you talk about Sevdah. Would you say that this is the authentic sound of Balkans?
I mean, you know, yeah. Oh, you know, of all this a cappella singing, you have, you know, everywhere. You have the great Albanian a cappella singers, and in Bulgaria, it's everywhere. In Serbia too, you know. It's just variations, you know, and depends now. You know, the Croatian a cappella singing was also its influence is from the. I think they brought it from the church, you know, because. Yeah, that's now. Yeah. Filmation. No, I mean. So it is pretty, let's say, difficult to really say, you know, because it's obvious that there is an influence, and depends on who was at that time the chief in Balkans, you know, like you know, Sevda, you know that's coming from, you know, it's this Oriental. You hear this, I would say, the Oriental sound, but there are also the Sevdalinkas that they were created during the Habsburg period. And then we have like this 3/4 beat, you know, they're almost in a waltz. So, you know, it's just giving more colors to the genre. Even.
Yes, please.
Can I add something about authenticity? Even Sevdalinka was changed so much through the period, and it was recorded and composed music of the early 20th century. That's how it's becoming popular. I mean, all the music which became popular in former Yugoslavia was 60s and 70s, which is mostly composed music. It was some traditional songs, but also some songs which are now considered as traditional because they are very close. So that authenticity is hard to trace in the Balkans. Maybe in some rural vocal styles which you can find more, but then with the urban songs, which Sevdalinka is, or Vranska pesma, is difficult to trace the authenticity, how it came through the Turks, or also who were the first one to record it, or how the people who recorded influenced the musicians, because they asked, okay, can you play this one, and then you record it. The other one was not recorded, and it's maybe gone.
Yeah, but that's, for example, you have for sure the first of Sevdalinkas, which it's like, I would say, from the theory, it's like even the female song, urban female song, you know, so they were singing the ladies. And that's funny stuff. I would say the first of the instrument, actually it was not the instrument, it was the natural flanger. It was tepsia, I would say now, tell me with English.
Baking pan.
Baking pan. And they were singing, and they were rotating this tepsia, baking pan. And you were getting some kind of flanger, you know, with a very strange, like, effect, you know, it was really great. I was trying to do that, you know, my God. I had that one break of trying for 20 minutes to do that. Yeah, and then, you know, it came saz, with the Turks, and of course tamburas, and then with the Habsburg monarchy, you know, came the accordion and violins, and you know, and also with the Habsburgs, you know, we got the hotels, we got the restaurant, we got the hotels, we got the restaurants. So you know, and the local musicians, they also were looking for the repertoire, you know. So they heard, I heard there are some nice songs, you know, it's like Sevdalinka, and so they start playing it publicly, you know. So that's it's difficult, and also I think one of the oldest recordings when we're talking about like world music, but I think the Austrians were doing also some recordings on of Sevdalinkas, you know, in their time was some kind of stuff. It was not now Austrians, but I think it was somebody came from Austria and they were recording the old Sevdalinka singers. You can find this from 30s, you know, these old recordings. Few Sevdalinka.
That's the Gezeman expedition.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, she knows everything.
Well, I probably have this as well, but that was a huge one.
Yeah.
Kim knows probably everything about it.
I know different things.
Yeah, and then we come to the point of probably hidden music, or is there a hidden music in Balkans? So I would like to give a floor to Kim. She has also a presentation here, and to hear something about her researches in this area.
Oh, thank you very much, Dejan. It's an absolute delight and an honor to be here. I was so happy to be asked. And really, it seems to me that so many people here are really the movers and shakers, the initiators and creators. It's not for my presentation. It's a hidden music.
This is how you promote the music.
So that must be from the exit files. Early days of exit.
Yes, no. This, while technical things are occurring, I will say how pleased it is that, you know, the people here who aren't me are the people who have actually made a difference, the people who've made the records, the people who've presented the musicians, the people who've made their networks all over the world, whereas I'm just an enthusiast and sometimes a facilitator who happen to be in the right place at the right time occasionally, at least I like to think so. And as a musician, I would say that I was served an apprenticeship, and one of the people I was apprenticed to was, in fact, Ben Mandelson. But as a researcher, I was actually trained as an ethnomusicologist, and I think one very important thing you need to keep in mind is that ethnomusicologists ruin everything.
Completely agreed.
Yeah, oh, yes, I even wrote down here, as I am sure you will agree. Okay. So I am going to talk about hidden musics a little bit. The one thing I hope not to use the word authentic or authenticity, because either everything is completely 100% authentic in some way, or it's not. So the word doesn't really have any meaning, but hidden is something else, and I think I want to start by analysing what we can mean by hidden. And I think what we're generally talking about here is a music that is ultimately being presented and adapted to be heard beyond its ordinary, and we might even say its natural audience. Now we could, I suppose, reduce this question to how can we sell what we haven't been able to sell yet? Or to put it a little bit more kindly, how do we help people to sell globally what they can so far only sell locally? And maybe that's better, I should say translocally, because there's a way in which these possibly hidden musical subcultures are already flowing through routes determined by patterns of emigration, voluntary and forced, and resettlement. And these often follow the routes which had been previously established by former imperial powers. So we can talk about that particularly in Bosnia, but also in the Balkans in general. But you can also find there is a particular Punjabi dance called Gidda, which is a women's dance, and that's kind of hidden in itself because men aren't supposed to be present when it's danced. I actually did a little bit and learned how to do it, and we did it in a big sports hall, you know, football, five-a-side football and basketball and everything. We'd sit in the corner, and if a male staff member walked through, we'd just stop. There'd be no practicing, no dancing, no anything. So, and that was in a town called Slough, where I live, where there's a big Punjabi population, and it's by no means hidden in the sense that nobody knows about it. It's just that only the people that know about it know about it. So, so when we talk about hidden, what do we mean? And you know, who is it hidden from? And once again, there's a paradox that once you know about something, you see it all the time. And another thing I want to mention right now, and I think I'll come back to it, is when I was in the Timok Krajina with the people there who are a Romanian dialect-speaking minority with a particular musical dialect, and I was there to try and study it a little bit. And my landlady came to me and she said, "Ah, an old woman in the hills has just died and the funeral is tomorrow." And this is why, to be an ethnographer, you need to have a heart of stone. Because I just went, yes, there's going to be a funeral. And I'm going to see what happens in the funeral. And it was very interesting, because one of the things that happened was that before, in the funeral procession, they carry a plum tree. And the plum tree has not been cut down, it's been uprooted, so it has all its roots. And it's decorated with handkerchiefs and dyed sheep's wool and shirts and that sort of thing. So it's obviously a ritual object. And so I asked my landlady, "What's that?" He says, "Oh, that is prune. You carry it before the body, you take it to the graveyard, and then you plant it so that the dead person has shade in the summer and shelter from the rains in the winter." And then she said, "It's a shame, nobody does that anymore." And I'm thinking, well, I'm looking at it. They're doing it right now, this very minute. So that there's not a way in which musical cultures are hidden from the people themselves who are practicing them, which I think is interesting. Let's see if this works. Yeah, this is for you. This is so you know what I'm talking about. This is for me, so that I know what I'm supposed to be talking about. So there's some meanings of hidden, and we've got things that are completely unknown. Well, obviously there's no such thing, but in terms of a demographic, there might be such a thing. And I always think that in the context of the Anglo world, the English-speaking world, German Schlager are absolutely unknown. They might as well not exist. If you said, "What is Schlager?" they would say, it's a sort of thing you put on cherries and fruit salad. But they don't know it as a music. So in that way, it is an unknown music. Then you have music that's hiding in plain sight. And my example here in the Balkans would be folk pop, which is never really made it out. Now, in some ways, it's a quintessential, I'm going to use the word, world music. It's quintessential world music because it's a popular music that takes advantage of technology. It's a syncretic. It's got very deeply embedded local roots. And it draws on all sorts of resources. It's very open, it's very creative, and it's very malleable. Now, unfortunately, when we're talking about this local form of folk pop, Rambo, Amadeus, and Setzer, working in tandem, have already poisoned that well. I don't think it's going to be possible to sell that music to a world music audience simply because of its reputation. And even other attempts, like for Bulgaria, neither Aziz nor Sophie Marinova have ever made it outside. Perhaps they don't need to, perhaps they don't want to, which is sort of another point. There's music that's ignored. And I'm just going to pass over very quickly, and those are lullabies. Everyone knows lullabies. It's never going to make it onto the WOMAD stage. Ethnomusicologists are interested in lullabies, but no one else is apart from mothers and their babies, who have to know them intimately. We have suppressed musics. The two examples I can think of here is Djurjevdan. I was just down in Debar talking to some of the Egyptiani musicians there. And the Hodja has said, "No, you can't celebrate Djurjevdan, it's a Christian festival." And they go, "We've been celebrating it for 300 years. And he goes, "No, you mustn't." And they don't really have any other festivals to go to because Bayram is not celebrated in the same way down there. So an entire time-honored cultural tradition, which is extremely rich and extremely deep, has been prohibited. And I have heard the same thing occurred in Shuto Orizari, that they don't celebrate Djurjevdan there any longer. And the music that I'm interested in, which is called Bosnian Izvorna music and Kalesiski Zvuci, except the version from a little bit further north, slightly more gentle, is sung by the diaspora population from the Posavina, the Bosnian Posavina, who crossed over the river as refugees, many of them, but also some of them just to seek work. And in the town of Dugoselo, the local administration actually issued a decree which said it is prohibited to perform this music on Velika Gospa. And that's, I think, two reasons. It does have a low status. It's an extremely looked down upon music, peasants, idiot music. You have to tell me when I'm going on for too long because I can't skip. In Vogošće, there was a television program because there was a large population shifted from the Drina Valley when they were expelled to Vogošće, which is a suburb of Sarajevo. So they have like a whole, as migrants do, they hang out together. And they had a television program, which was a request program, sending, I want to hear this song. Yeah. And the local choir master actually got up a petition to try and have this program taken off the television. So that's a special value of hidden, I think. And then we've got, what have I got? Undefined or unfocused, so you don't really know what it is. And here we could cite the music from the Gorani, Goranci, in the south of Kosovo, who are, depending on who you're talking to, sort of Albanians, sort of Muslim Slavs, sort of Muslim Macedonians. They do have a musical culture, but it's really unfocused. Some people say, oh, it's Zurla and Tapan, or it's somebody singing along to a version of a sharki, or it's somebody singing with a little pop band because they've got their own tiny music industry by now. But it's almost impossible to hear. And the first time I ever heard it was actually I was sitting in a burekcia in Derventa and talking to the guy behind the counter. He says, oh, I'm from Gora. And I said, you're here to listen to music? He said, have you ever heard Gora music? I said, no. And he played it me on my phone. And it doesn't sound like any of the things you can find on YouTube. It's absolutely wide open for somebody to go and find out what is actually happening there. Not as an ethnomusicologist, but as somebody who says, again, this music needs to be heard. How can we help it? If there is a music there that needs to be heard, it's so hidden from me that I can't even tell you. Too intimate for wider consumption, and this is what I think Ben mentioned earlier, that there are certain musics in ritual context or social contexts that won't make sense anymore. What did I write? Okay, this is a bit difficult, so I better read it out. Zurla music in Deba requires control of different styles and repertoires which are highly localized, so that once you take them out of those areas, intentionality and stylistic subtleties vanish, and itself the music may neither be pleasing or suited to a new marketplace, and it may have then lost its connections with its old context. I was just doing a little bit of extra research last night, watching on the internet, and there was a news report of the inauguration of the new airport in Kukës, which was opened by people playing Zurla and Tapan, to celebrate the new airport. That's a context which I think is people from outside can find difficult to understand, to grasp. Through resistance to transformation, because it's so important to people, and that's like a form of the above as well, that they want to keep it as it is because it's such a vital and central part of their identities. Or it may have already been transformed in a way that is not suitable. And this feeds into what Draghi was saying about we have been playing this music for 50 years and it's supposed to sound like that, everyone knows. For instance, a lot of the small musical cultures are preserved and developed through the use of arts and culture associations, which is the best I can do as a translation for Kulturno-umetničko društvo, or a KUD. And these are intended for community cohesion as much as anything else, and they've changed in the versions of the of the community, which used to be the entirety of Yugoslavia, often down to the identity of a small village, but they're still functioning in the same ideological fashion. And the KUDs, these associations, are embedded in the local society. And they also seek to confine its content for local purposes which are not necessarily aesthetic. And I think I'll come back to that if I have time. If you have the Susret Sela, which is competitions between villages who compete in their folk dances. And actually, there's a question here. How many people here went to the folklore when they were children? Some, anyway. So you know what I'm talking about. And those who didn't go to the folklore?
But I had dance lesson.
Anyway, it's a competition. It's not primarily artistic. It's a socially intimate experience in which you, if you're lucky, go home with a trophy or a certificate, and everyone's happy about it. Now we've got. I've gone too soon. Never mind. But the musicians themselves may decide they don't want to do it. They've no interest, and as you said, they've no interest in going into a global market. And let's say I'm thinking now of you'll all have your own examples that you can think of, but I'm thinking of Feruz Mustafov, that Petar Barbaric worked very hard to try and put onto the circuit. And it didn't happen for two reasons. One was because Ferris said, why the hell should I go to London to make miserable money when I can drive the car 2 miles down the road and people will be giving me money all weekend? And the other one, I think that is true, is because Ivo Papazov was already there. And this is the Highlander principle, that there can be only one. That the music is hidden because the big man or the big woman or the big band is standing in front of it and you can't see it because there's somebody in the way already. And then very quickly, social media, which I like to refer to as the tyrannical filter of Web 2.0, which means that only certain points, these musics are self-selected, YouTube, Facebook, when small music cultures are involved. They are selected by the people within that community, but they become ghettoized, they become an echo chamber, they become means by which separated communities can talk to one another. And this is very much connected with the idea of Zavichai as an emotional homeland, somewhere where you remember by taste, by the smell of the air, by what's there, by the configuration of the village street, by which baker was there, by what you used to do on Sundays. And these can come down very small. And there's a lot of discussion of Zavichai on Facebook groups and on YouTube. And sometimes it will go down to literally the smallest thing you can remember. Like, do you remember that tree? Right, well, yeah, when we recorded this video with this band, we went past that tree and said, I know that tree. Did they cut it down? Yeah, they cut it down, and I think it was so-and-so, and it was, what's his name, with the saw from that workshop. So, in this way, music is carrying on a social discourse, a very important social discourse. But the more it does it, the less it allows anybody else in. And let's see, let's skip along. I've done that. Okay, now we get the video. And this is the music from Posavin I've been researching over the last few years. And here are some examples of what it is and where it is. And the first bit is in a hunter's lodge after a hunt. They'd all been out, they'd all come back. They had only managed to hunt 5 partridges, but fortunately the host's wife had the foresight to go to the market and buy a pig. television studio. Control room of the television studio. Charity concert for a sick child. Recording studio in Zagreb. Social club in Zagreb. Religious festival in Zagreb where the same people are appearing. Rehearsal. Mixing at studio in Kakmuj in Bosnia. Festival of people going back to a church in Osren. Right. So in what way is this music hidden? How many people knew about it before? So we actually have a music that is wildly popular, that has global reach, that has people traveling all over the world to perform, that has put out roots in clubs that in towns all over Europe, in America, in Australia, and certainly beyond. Actually, there's one little group of this kind of music of people who came from, Serbs who came from that part of Bosnia, and it's really close to Sremska Mitrovica. It's got recording studios, it's got television stations, it's got radio stations, it's got people who play specific roles in the recording and distribution of this music. Somebody designs the covers, somebody else sorts the distribution, somebody else drives them round and gives it to the petrol stations. You buy them on the border when you're leaving Bosnia, at the same place that you buy cheap cigarettes before you go home to Sweden, where you live now. So it's not really hidden, but it's unknown. And the question I'm not going to answer, but I'm going to ask you is, what are you going to do about this music? Do you think you should do anything about this music? Do you think you can take it out? Do you think it does have a place beyond the Anglosphere, beyond the Europe sphere, beyond the English-speaking world sphere that all does the, I'm going to use the word again, world music? I'm so sorry, I said I wouldn't. And then again, thinking about music in its context once more. What ethnomusicologists do, apart from ruining everything, is they want to examine that context and attempt not to affect it or to alter it, and hope not to exert ownership over it. The entrepreneur would like to develop it and sell it, ideally for the mutual financial and aesthetic benefits of the performer, the entrepreneur, and the various audiences. which once again may fall, unfortunately, into exerting ownership of it. God forbid that anyone here does that, of course, I quite understand. And local and national administrations have their own interest, which is why that music is not under UNESCO, but Klapa is under UNESCO, but not in Bosnia, in Croatia. And I heartily recommend a book called Horror, Porno, Ennui, The Aesthetics of Post-Socialism, which published by the Institute of Ethnography in Zagreb, which deals with this subject at length. You know, who decides that something is intangible enough to be preserved. And another context, I'm going to hope this will work. Is this. How do I start it? Very briefly. This is a context. Okay, that's enough context. But you can see what's happening there. This is a slightly different form of the same music. It's in the Sprecher Valley near Kalesia. And it's a place called Kodjimia, which is basically a concrete box in the middle of nowhere. And what are you going to do about this when its context is farmers and lorry drivers mainly, who are extremely drunk, are having a very good time, have not got any women in the building apart from me. I say they were perfect gentlemen. But the people in the band is what Munavera and Mensur and Salcho and Elvin in that band. I mean, they're not having a good time. They're at work. And they're at work in a very difficult situation where they have to be in control of a very recalcitrant audience. Again, I'm not going to draw any conclusions from this. I'm just going to say we should maybe think about this, that what they're used to is kind of different. As I say, how do you transform it without stripping it of meaning for anybody? Okay, punk is not dead. And this is about context again. Because music out of its context can lead to, and we're going now the other way, punk in Belgrade, where a music which was of rebellion, of working class interests, became a music which was used to display membership of the middle class, of being forward-thinking, of being sophisticated. And as somebody said, and maybe somebody can remind me who it was, Belgrade was the only place in which spitting was absolutely prohibited. Whereas in England, spitting was a kind of, what you did at concerts. It was a sign of rebellion. But in Belgrade, if you spat, you were some kind of awful person from the country. And it changed its meaning. The meaning of punk was therefore completely different. Then we have guided misinterpretation, I guess, which there's one famous example of it where a group from Syria playing religious music, very beautifully, were taken to a concert in New York. And they were, before they came on stage, the moderator, the person introducing the concert, said, "You must remember that this is actually religious music. It may sound beautiful and joyful, but it's a religious music, and you must absolutely respect this when you listen to it, so that these performers are not insulted." So the audience kind of sat like this, or like this, or like this all the way through. And it was apparently a fantastic, I wasn't there, apparently it was a fantastic performance. And then backstage, all the musicians going, "Oh my fucking God, they hate us. They don't like us." Because they didn't have even applause, let alone interaction that they're used to. It's a problem, And then we have back to the culture and arts associations. something that happened to me when I was looking at the Homolski Motivi Festival in Kučevo, which is big and gorgeous and has lots of fantastic music on it, and does attempt, as I say, to prevent, I'm going to use this word now, an authentic presentation of what the music is. And I was talking to the organizer of the festival, a very capable man, and said, what am I doing this for? And said, so you're telling me that you work towards the music should be pure and authentic? He says, yes, we try to show it as it was 400 years ago. Okay, 400 years ago, most of that population was still in Romania. But so I said, that must be very interesting and very difficult to tell. What was this music like? How did they dance? What were the costumes like? What did it sound like 400 years ago? He says, oh, there are experts. And when you speak to the people in the groups who are performing, says, these people, these so-called experts, come down from Belgrade and they say, no, you can't do that. No, it's not in the book. You can't do it. And well, we have been doing it for 400 years now. I didn't ask them how they knew they'd been doing it for 400 years, because they obviously didn't. But they knew how they were doing it last week, and that's quite important. The other reason for a KUD that those of you in it, and maybe the mums and dads here might know, is to keep the kids off the streets, so that they're not out taking drugs, they're not out causing trouble and breaking windows, they're not threatening grannies. If they're on the stage doing their folk dancing, then they can't get into trouble. And the best thing is that, you know, they can travel, they even go to other countries. So there's this little network of places where they go and perform, which are not, it's not part of our network. It might be part of the Eisteddfod in Wales, or things that like to show choreographed, presented, dramatically formed versions and transformations of folk music. And this is something I talked about earlier. The transformation has been performed already. The musicians are happy with it. They don't want to change it anymore, because what do you want to do that for? What do you want to put a drum on it for? And, okay, I'm now coming to the end, but this is what I call the story. These are bands that have been successful from the Balkans outside. And I think there's not really that many. There's brass bands, there's South Albanian Polyphony, there's New Sevdah, there's the Bulgarian choirs, small groups and wedding bands, which have now largely vanished from the scene anyway. Romanian Lautari, Greek Rebetica, sometimes Cretan music via Ross Daly. And I think if you look at these examples of types, most of you can imagine the single Highlander that represents these musics. You know, there's not a crowd of Lautari doing the circuit. And maybe somebody can suggest other types of music that have made it that large. I mean, there have been attempts to bring other ones out, but I don't think they've been highly successful. Yes, that's true. That's true. So she can be the representation of.
Yeah, I mean that's more like if you go to the gypsy community and gypsy musicians, then you can draw out few singers who has been popular everywhere, but that's maybe not the style. It's the name. That's what she was mentioning, the style. I mean, then you can find out many different artists coming from the Balkans that are popular, but that's not a specific style. I mean, that's easy to track. I mean, you can say Vujicic were quite known everywhere, but I mean, this kind, you cannot say that this style is very known, I mean, of the Serbian or Slav music in Hungary. So that's what the idea, that some kind of style. And also you can say, okay, Boris Kovac was well known everywhere, but in fact, I mean, his style on his own, like Esma is presenter of this kind of music, Shaban is presenter, but maybe Dragi can talk more about this kind of stuff, but also some new names which are becoming popular, and then if Bregovic is brass band, I don't know. It's computer band.
Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. And here is something that nobody does anymore.
Dear Kim Burton. As we are close to finish this first panel, I wanted to ask all of you, when we were talking about hidden music, is there something out of this hidden music that is worth of thinking of promoting it, of putting it on the market, because all of this context here surrounding us now about world music is about promoting and putting the music on the market. But I would not do it because I think that it was quite strongly highlighted also by Ben in one particular moment, and you too here, that probably there is music that doesn't have to be promoted, and it is not there to be promoted, but it is there to be music. So I think that it is also good to have in mind that we can dig really deep, we can go and discover music that is still not in the books or in the some audio formats. And I would mention here the extraordinary work, in example, of Svetlana Spajic, who is going around the villages and in different regions of Balkans and recording music and bringing it in front of the audience. And I can tell you that 2 weeks ago on Ethnofest in Palić, the audience was really delighted by her performance of these songs, which are not popular songs, but the songs that were, in example, hidden from us, the audience, the songs from the villages far away. So if any of you would have a comment, one more comment, Bojan, and then maybe if there is a question or two, and then we are closing this first panel. Yeah.
The thing of the hidden music also is for the producers, for the labels, and for the festival organizers. I mean, what we are presenting will show that some things are not hidden as it is. I mean, you mentioned Svetlana, and then also the labels, if they are existing, if they show something, then it exists, more people are knowing about it. And also when we speak about the Balkans, the music of the minority is extremely hidden. Knowing the Balkans, how they respect their minorities, except the big ones like Hungarian one in Serbia, or Serbian in Hungary, then the other music is quite hidden. Like you mentioned World Music Association of Serbia, they are doing stuff which is really hidden, very traditional. Maria did 2 CDs with the black music, which is huge in the region and also elsewhere, but it's completely unknown. So it also depends on us, the record producers. If you put it out, even it's digital, then you will have to see it, because they don't see how it can be on the market. So people who are doing this music, either they do only wedding music, and that's fine, and they do it, but they would like to be on the market. Just they don't know how to deal with it and how to come to the market, how you come to the clubs, to the journalists, to the radio stations, because as we are from this so-called niche, which we love different musics, and we are happy to play this kind of music or to have it on the festival. Just they have to find out how to reach us, and that's, I think, not only their task, it's our task as well.
Yeah, but I'm also running record label, you know, and also booking agency, and I'm like one-man show. But it's so difficult, even, you know, in my head, it's even now 10, 15 projects. But you know how much money you need to you know, that you can, if you have to release a CD, if you want to promote anything, you know, even we were getting sometimes, even with Mostar Sevda Reunion or some other projects, I was getting great reviews in a Songlines magazine, like of F Roots, whatever, And even I would put advertisement in that magazine. And what? You know, I would just spend the money and you wait, is it somebody's going to call you for the festival? It's really difficult. It is a lot of money, you know, especially for if you're running just a little independent label. You know, I love the music. I love all, you know, there are so many projects I would like to get involved, but it's just impossible. So I just have to choose, like, okay, maybe this can be, you know, this is interesting, but, you know, let's see, maybe somebody's going to call them for the concerts. But even with this, like what you now presenting, Kalesijski Zvuč, you know, I would dare I would not have problem, you know, to go with some of these guys just in the studio, let's record something, let's experiment. Yeah, but if I have to spend 10, 15, 20,000 euros to release the album and then that somebody's going to call them, I don't have that money. It's even, you know, I can tell too, I'm working at a hospital. Now I'm just doing music because I love that, you know, it's my hobby. I cannot make a living out of this. It's difficult because I'm not supported with the government, with the Ministry of Culture, you know, I'm living in Holland. It's so difficult. So it's also for the artist, you know, even sometimes I'm thinking, you know, why did I do this? Would I do this again? You know, like, probably yes, you know, because it's just, it's something, it's obsession, you know, to make the album, to go for something new. But it's really a difficult life, and especially also for the artist. They also know that, you know, that what's going to happen, you know, when they have to go to pension, you know, when they are 68 or something. Are they going to get the salary or whatever, money? It is tough life, it's really difficult. So, a little bit depressing end.
A lot of challenges along the way and a lot of approaches to the traditional or roots music that is known or unknown. Some of the examples, we mentioned World Music Association of Serbia several times here with their great job. You can see now on the screens some of their releases, books and CDs that they are produced to promote some of the music that was probably hidden from us and became better known, especially through their platform and appearing on WOMEXs. But also we have to keep in mind that there are now living projects like the MOST project is, which is a platform to promote new music and new artists. So we hope that some new artists will apply for the public calls announced within the MOST project until the beginning of September. And that I suppose some of the artists who will apply will be some of those which are still hidden from us, and that the MOST project will discover them. So that would be for the first panel. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and thank you to the panelists for their insights into this subject. Thank you.